That metal interview.
Undisputed is the name of the album by the band Blood Red Saints, which you guys have to check out. If you like 80s rock, 80s metal, 80s rock and roll, this is for you, man. Just as it is for me. And by the way, my name is James. Thank you guys for supporting. Thank you guys for your continued support on our podcast, That Metal Interview. Thank you for sharing, downloading, subscribing, blah, blah, blah. You know what to do. Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you. And so we speak to these great gentlemen. 3 members of Blood Red Saints speak to us and accompany us on this interview. We have Pete Godfrey, Lee Revill, Rob Nayor on the bass. So we got a couple of Blood Red Saints with us. So anyways, and they actually interviewed me for a little bit there. So that's pretty cool, actually. I've never been interviewed like that. So cool. So anyways, before we continue to the interview, let's spin a badass rock ballad / rock song by this awesome band, man, Blood Red Saints. Let's check out the song Breathe Again. We'll be right back.
There's not a day I don't see your face. A million pieces to remind me always. They say life goes
Tremendous composition there by the great band from England, Blood Red Saints. Check it out, man, one more time. Album entitled Undisputed is the name of the album, Blood Red Saints. Check it out, man. Frontiers Music. Here's our interview with Pete, Lee, and Rob. Enjoy. How are things over there with the pandemic?
Well, it's one of those. You've got Lee here, you've got Pete here, you've got Rob here. It's pretty much probably what you see in the news. Same as over there. Slowly but surely getting back to normal, hopefully.
Yeah, it's just a strange situation, huh?
Been the weirdest year and a half ever, hasn't it?
So congrats on your new album, Undisputed. 11 great tracks. Talk to us about this album, the making of it, who wrote the stuff, how do you guys go about that, the writing process?
Go on, Lee.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for that. Basically, it's like I suppose most bands do the same thing, especially the last couple of years, because you sort of kind of been stuck in. So I start the process probably with rough ideas. I send them over to Pete. Pete then works some sort of magic on them. Suddenly they start getting bounced around. And then we just started to hit, probably January we started. We got about 4 or 5 songs in, started to like what we were hearing. So then we started to take it a bit more serious and started to finish the tracks then. And then we got to sort of 11, 12 tracks, 13 probably we picked from.
Yeah.
And then pretty much that's how it works. So I bounce them around to Pete, and then he sort of chucks them back, says change this, do this, and then we sort of work it to the end.
So was this in person, or was this email?
Yeah, it's like via drop. The modern guy, I've got a studio here, and Pete's got one in his house. So
I don't know whether did you have lockdowns in America where
Yes.
you weren't allowed out and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we sort of had it pretty much for about 10 months, didn't we?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, James, we did break lockdown a few times just to get together, you know. But mainly it was done through Dropbox links and stuff like that. But yeah, we did sort of. We in the UK we had bubbles, so we all pretended we were in the same bubble. It was that sort of scene a lot of the time.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, huh? That's cool.
Yeah,
Definitely.
All for rock and roll.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, let's try and keep it alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool. So would you say Undisputed is a continuation of your last album, Pulse, or would you say you guys took a different approach on this?
To be honest with you, to be fair, we actually just wanted to write a really good melodic rock album.
Nice.
So it's kind of easier in a way because we weren't trying to change the world. Whereas with Pulse, we thought we were changing the world by being a little bit different than sort of from Speedway upwards. And then when we did it, we kind of we think we moved a mile and we probably moved about a centimetre. So it was this time, it was going to be a melodic rock album, and pretty much that was how it went, weren't it? We just kept the same line.
Yeah, and Rob's the proper melodic rock fan in the band, and he kept banging on about us doing a melodic rock album again. So we sort of gave it. We did, to be honest, to be fair, James, the first song that we wrote was Heaven in the Headlights, and we were like, oh, it's melodic rock again.
Oh, yeah.
Me and Lee would have a shine down for the last 18 months. Right? But nobody got it. You know, it was just one of them, why have you changed? Why are you not doing sort of like Bon Jovi stroke Def Leppard?
Yeah.
So Rob kept banging on about doing what we're fingers in the air good at. And we did pretty much the sequel to Speedway, I reckon it is, going back to the first album.
Nice. I heard, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it seemed to have worked.
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge 80s fanatic, a huge 80s rock fanatic, that is, and I heard Heaven...
As well.
Yeah, so...
Best era, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were lucky we had Van Halen at our youth.
So did you guys want to sound like that, or is that Rob's idea, or... Because it sounds badass to me. I'm an 80s fanatic, and it sounds...
It's just where,
it takes it
where
back.
we're from, I think. It's like people have always accused us of saying like, oh, it sounds so 80s. It's like Pete always says, we are from the 80s. So,
Right.
you know, all our influences are the same as the 80s. They're the same as Def Leppard. They're the same as Winger. So it's no real surprise that we end up sounding a little bit like that. It's not, it's just all our influences. That's where they're from. So I don't think it's something that we really go out of our way to do. It's just what we do.
Just seem more comfortable with how it turned out because it seemed more natural to do it. That's probably the best way. It just seemed to come. Each song seemed to take on its own sort of life, and you sort of go, okay, that sounded good. We'll just leave it. So we just let it roll instead of trying to change it too drastically. And the reception we've had is really good. So obviously, by not messing and trying to change it too much, it worked out okay.
As a fanatic, as a rock fanatic, it takes me back to that time in life, you know, because I'm also an 80s person, and to us fans, you guys did a great job, and, you know, congrats on that. That's awesome style you got there. It's in like a new...
Thank you very much. Brilliant.
It's like a new 80s kind of...
That's where we're from anyway, James. Definitely. 80s rock fans. Definitely.
So who chose...
If you keep saying nice things, we might have to come over and buy you a pint in Texas.
Okay, so who chose the name Blood Red Saints? And what's the meaning behind the name?
Are you doing it?
It's an awkward one because we came up with the name. We were bandying names around a lot, and it was a name that we just really liked. So we decided to create a backstory. We completely made it up about the Speedway team. People seem to take us very seriously about it, though, and it sort of took on a life of its own, and it went a bit too far in some respects. That was all it was. It was a name that we all really liked. We created a backstory about the Speedway riders and the Brooklyn and the American side of it, and it just seemed to take off, and we found ourselves down a little bit of an alley, really, with it. Eventually, we had to say, we made it up.
Yeah.
We made it up.
And we were that convincing. I'll let Pete tell this story, but you've got time, haven't you? You've got a bit of time here, James.
Of course, sure, of course.
Yeah. So I'll let Pete tell you a little story of what happened when he got a phone call.
So, do you have Speedway? I know there's a lot of American Speedway riders, but they all seem to ride in Europe. But people like Greg Hancock and stuff like that, do you know Speedway? Or is Speedway cars to you?
Of course.
Right, so we brought the album out Speedway, and we made this story up about it being a Speedway team from Brooklyn in the 1920s. It was completely made up. And after the album came out, about 3 or 4 weeks after the album came out, I got this phone call off a guy, and he wrote for a magazine called Speedway Star. And that's sort of like the main magazine for Speedway in Europe. So it's sort of quite a big deal. And he came on, and he said, I've written quite a few books about Speedway riders from America, and I've tried to research the Blood Red Saints. He said, but I'm not finding anything, right? So I was like, you're not going to do, mate. So he's like, why is that? So I'm like, because we made it all up, right? It was just all fiction.
He was mortified.
Right? So he was horrified because he literally had put in all the groundwork. But we got a 2-page spread in a Speedway magazine.
Yeah, which was brilliant publicity.
And then the next thing is, a few months after that, where we live in Manchester, we used to have this team called Bellevue Aces that was quite a big Speedway team in England. And they built a new stadium. And I got a phone call off the guys there asking me to go and be the sound guy for the Speedway track, which was the National Speedway team, National Speedway Stadium.